On this edition of the Captain's Log, I will be talking about the Prime Directive, the Gold Key Comics line of Star Trek, and my top 10 list of celebrities who have been in the Star Trek franchise. As always, my name is James Liss, and I welcome you, and let's have at it. Today I'd like to talk about the philosophy of the Prime Directive, or if you want to call it the regulation of the Prime Directive. Basically, the Prime Directive is supposed to be an ethical guideline for how Starfleet treats cultures that are on a lower scale of development than the Federation. Now, it supposedly ensures that every culture they encounter is given the opportunity to develop on its own without interference from outsiders, basically Starfleet. That's the general idea. But my question is the Prime Directive ethically moral? Now, understandably, it's definitely okay not to interfere with local wars and cultural development. But however, a lot of times in Star Trek, the Prime Directive is invoked when lesser developed cultures are asking Starfleet for help, like in a crisis. And now, but here's the question. What about when the society has come unraveled? What if it is encountering a crisis of epic proportions? For instance, what if the local volcano is going up? How about a pandemic that can be solved by transporting the cure into groundwater? And solving these problems isn't interference that way. It's saving a people. Basically, with this in mind, why does the Federation seemingly act prejudiced towards a lesser society? And now, morally, it might be difficult to turn your back on somebody asking you for help, like on a plague or a natural disaster. And is it, let me see, is it a species that, what happens if a species disregards everything they've grown up with, everything they've developed, because they happen to see a more higher level of technology, and change their religion because they saw, for instance, a starship like they did in the 2009 film Star Trek. Perhaps they might try harder to get to the stars, but then that species might miss out on conflict resolution skills offered by having competing religions. Even if the best intended intrusion can have not be predicted what consequences it will have over the span of tens, hundreds, or even thousands of years. And now, however, it's well known that technology of sufficiently advanced stage would be indistinguishable from magic to a lesser culture. And let's see, but some societies, it might drastically affect their ability to develop their religious beliefs, and they wouldn't be able to understand that the technologies are just that, technology and not God. And now this kind of thing has actually happened here on Earth in the United States, specifically in the first half of the 20th century. And in World War II, Stone Age societies of the Pacific region encountered advanced technological societies like the United States, England, any of the Western cultures. And they, for instance, they saw planes and manufactured goods and firearms for the first time. In some cases, this led to a worship of those cargo-bearing planes and the people who flew them. Basically, you could think of them as cargo cults. Now, we have also done things like that all through the history of our world. Now, the modern day analog of some situations where the Prime Directive is supposed to prevent wars would be, to prevent superpowers from inserting themselves into those wars among the smaller nations. Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq. Now, we as the United States muddled in the Korean War, and now, more than 65 years later, they're still divided, North and South Korea, and half of that country is ruled, the North half is ruled by a dictator who has implemented a national system of what can only be called torturous brutality and, just out and out deprivation. The USSR, Soviets, they got involved in Afghanistan, and then the United States decided to get involved on the other side. And as you well know, we're still there. And it also developed into Osama bin Laden, who brutally ignited 15 years of constant war in the region. Now, the problem with this Prime Directive in Star Trek is that it's loosely and broadly applied. Now, it can correspond to almost any situation if you twist your words right, or if you just don't feel like helping someone. Consider the Voyage episode Nightingale. Harry, Kim, Neelix, and 7 and 9 are in the Delta Flyer, and they come across a cloaked vessel, which is urgently requesting help and claiming to be on a humanitarian mission. Now, Kim's response was, sorry, can't help, Prime Directive. And of course, Neelix makes him relent, but the point stands. Now, meanwhile, a Starfleet admiral admits to Picard to selling and giving arms to both sides in a civil war, which was in season 1. It's the episode Too Short a Season. And Picard barely gets after him, let alone ordering this man sent straight to the brig for violating the Prime Directive. And now the Prime Directive is intended to prevent unintended consequences, but because it's a single idea, non-interference, don't interfere, rather than a set of guidelines, it's the application of that axiom, if you will, can cause a lot of problems. Now, how about the Next Gen episode Homeward? Was that a big violation of the Prime Directive? Yes, it was. Now, I personally think that the Enterprise should not have become involved with that situation to begin with, but putting them back on the planet would have been even worse, because continuing with the charade of the holodeck is both patronizing and dangerous, with a greater potential to cause scenarios seen in the beginning of Into Darkness. Now, the Prime Directive, it also gives the captain an excuse to wash their hands of any grief or culpability in whatever situation is going on. Sort of understandable, but now, can the Federation be expected to monitor, let alone intervene in every developing alien societies, or political or even environmental problem? Well, that can be taken too far. Now, if the Federation keeps up such a non-interventing policy in play, it doesn't ever have to consider any alternatives or conduct self-examination, which can lead to problems in and of itself. In many ways, this makes the Federation similar to Q, who is very self-satisfied and convinced that other species besides himself are, need to advance to his level before they can be considered his equal. And that's why he considers us something like ants, and like we would ants. Now, I could go on, but I would like to conclude by saying that I think the Prime Directive is far too rigid for all of the weird situations that the Star Trek characters come into or come across during their travels. And and that just leads to everybody breaking it whenever they feel like it. Now, I would love to hear your ideas. Give me a holler on the comments and stuff, and I'd love to discuss this further if you want to. But for now, that's basically my my policy, my philosophy on what I think the Prime Directive is, that it could be better, actually, in my opinion. Hey, in this section of the show, I want to talk about the Gold Key Comics line of comic books that were first published in 1967 based on Star Trek. They were put out by the Whitman Publishing Company, and they were the first publishers of any kind of Star Trek comic books. Now, the series ran for a total of 61 issues between July 1967 and March 1979. Now, there was a 62nd edition or issue planned, but they never got it published. Now, at first, these comics were good for Star Trek because they showed that Star Trek could be more than just a television show, and that they could make some money off of it, and it, therefore making it profitable in more ways than one. They also, the comic books also had the advantage of being free from the limitations on creativity that the show had. The show had a limited budget. They were restricted to doing special effects in a certain way, not like we have today with the CGI and all that. Now, in most issues, though, the crew members, except for Spock, wore lime green uniforms. As you know, that's different from the gold, the blue, and the red ones. And also, Scotty is blonde in those episodes or comic books issues. Uhura and Sulu hardly ever show up. Yeoman Rand only showed up once. There's also the problem of rocket flames being shown shooting out the end of the nacelles, and that didn't happen, or wouldn't have happened in Star Trek. Now, they had basically good stories, but sometimes the characters would say and or do things that were completely out of character from the way they were shown on the TV series. And anyway, all in all, though, I think the stories themselves made up for the lack of creativity. It almost seemed as if the writers of the comic books hadn't even seen or weren't even told what was going on in the show. So they basically had no idea if they were doing things right or wrong. So I'll give them that. But even so, every so often while I was reading, and I do have copies of them, that it seemed like it was cringeworthy material. But even so, I think it's a good reading for say a Saturday afternoon when you just want to relax and just kind of escape a little bit. They're a good way to escape. I mean, like I said, the stories were good. The artwork was okay, considering it was mostly in the 1960s. And other than that, yeah, they're good collector's items. They really are, especially if you want to have something vintage Star Trek. It'd be even better if you, of course, you had the actual comic books themselves. I've got the what they call the collections. They're put together in certain collections, and I also have been getting some of the Eagle Moss from IDW. Their graphic novel books, and each one of them so far, except for the special editions, have had copies of the, or reprints rather, of the original Gold Key comic books, which is fun. But all in all, yeah, I would recommend if you can get them, especially since they're vintage Star Trek. And they're probably worth quite a lot, especially if you get the original ones in mint condition or good condition. But even so, yeah, they're worth it. So that's all I have to say about the Gold Key comics. Thanks for watching. This section of the show, I'm going to be talking about some of the top 10 celebrities who have been on the various shows of Star Trek, episodes, different series. First on my list is Joan Collins. If you remember, she was in the TV show Dynasty as Alexis Carrington Colby from, I believe that from 1981 to 1989. She's also in the TV movie Paper Dolls in 1982 as the character Racine. And she appeared on video in the Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in the year 1999, and she was Mrs. Potiphar on that one. But perhaps her most famous and my favorite role of hers is when she played Edith Keeler in the original series episode, The City on the Edge of Forever, which appeared in 1967. And here's a little shot from that video.
Now, let's start by getting one thing straight. I'm not a do-gooder. If you're a bum, if you can't break off with a booze or whatever it is that makes you a bad risk, then get out. Now, I don't pretend to tell you how to find happiness in love when every day is just a struggle to survive. But I do insist that you do survive, because the days and the years ahead are worth living for. One day soon, man is going to be able to harness incredible energies, maybe even the atom. Energies that could ultimately hurl us to other worlds in some sort of spaceship. And the men that reach out into space will be able to find ways to feed the hungry millions of the world and to cure their diseases. They will be able to find a way to give each man hope and a common future. And those are the days worth living for.
Okay, next on the list is actually a bit of a surprise to me when I was researching this episode, or this section of the show. Turns out that Star Trek has had royalty on the show, on one of the shows. Actually, it was on the set of Voyager. It was none other than King Abdullah bin al-Hussein of Jordan. He turns out he was a very big Star Trek fan. And in 1996, he was offered the chance to tour the set of Voyager, which he apparently readily agreed to. And while he was there, they even gave him an opportunity to appear in the show. It was a walk-on part. He was I believe the way it looked, it was a Lieutenant JG science officer. And he was in the middle of a conversation between Neelix and Harry Kim. And so that episode was Investigations, yes.
Ah, Mr. Kim, just the person I wanted to see.
See you later.
Did you watch a briefing with Neelix this morning?
Number 3 on my list is Stephen Hawking. As you all know, he is one of the most brilliant minds of our time. Unfortunately, he did pass away in 2018. Now, apparently his research on black holes in outer space greatly helped the Star Trek writers. And he was actually the only person to have ever portrayed themselves on the Star Trek show. This one I'm talking about, this episode I'm talking about, was on the 6th season of Next Generation. It was called Descent, and it appeared in 1993. He was in a hologram program featuring Data, Albert Einstein, and Sir Isaac Newton. And they were playing a game of poker, believe it or not, all 4 of them. And it was actually pretty funny.
But then I said, in that frame of reference, the perihelion of Mercury would have precessed in the opposite direction.
That is a great story.
Quite amusing, Dr. Hawking.
You see, Sir Isaac, the joke depends on an understanding of the relativistic curvature of space-time. If two non-inertial reference frames are in relative motion...
Do not patronize me, sir. I invented physics. The day that apple fell on my head was the most momentous day in the history of science.
Not the Apple story again.
Now, the next one was a bit of a surprise for me. Number 4 on the list is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. None other than that, you of course know he's a professional wrestler. He appeared in several movies, some of which were, he first appeared in the Fast and the Furious franchise in the movie Fast 5 in 2011 as the part of Hobbs. And then, of course, my favorite movie of his was Rampage, which appeared in 2018. He played the role of Davis Oki. I really enjoyed that movie. Not too far behind was he played in 2 of the Jumanji movies. The first one was Welcome to the Jungle, which was in 2017. He played the role of Spencer. And since I kind of like disaster type films, this was another one of mine. He played the role of Will Sawyer in 2018 in the movie Skyscraper. Now, his role in Star Trek was on the series Voyager. He played in a professional wrestler, go figure, in the episode Senkatsu. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. In the year 2000, his role on there was the champion, and he wrestles, of all people, 7 of 9.
Superior strength. And their bad temper. I hear they have a tendency to throw their opponents into the stands. Be ready to duck.
Insulting me by putting you in the pit to face me.
I must warn you, I possess superior strength.
I'm trembling.
I assure you, resistance is futile.
Now, number 5 on the list is Christopher Lloyd, of course. And now some of his roles have been in the TV series Taxi. He first appeared on that show in 1978 as the famous Reverend Jim Ignatowski, one of my favorite characters. Of course, he played Dr. Brown in the Back to the Future franchise, which first was released in 1985. He also played a kind of a serious role in the TV show Law and Order: Criminal Intent. In 2008, he played the role of Carmine in the episode Vanishing Act. There was another role he played on TV, The Big Bang Theory. It was a one-shot role. He played Theodore in the 2016 episode of the Property Division Collision. And of course, he played Commander Krug in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock.
Drop all weapons! Over there! All but Kirk! Folks!
visitors have beam coordinates.
You should take the Vulcan too.
No,
But why?
because you wish it. Look! Joy-Chu! Genesis! I want it!
Beam the Vulcan up. And we'll talk.
Give me what I want, and I'll consider it.
You fool, look around you. The planet's destroying itself.
Yes, exhilarating, isn't it?
If we don't help each other, we'll die here.
Perfect. Then that's the way it shall be. Give me Genesis!
Give me your hand. I have had enough of you.
Now, number 6 on my list is Kim Cattrall. She had several roles in movies, of course. One of my favorites was when she appeared in the first Police Academy movie in 1984 as the role of Officer Karen Thompson. She also played in Big Trouble in Little China in 1986 as Gracie Law. She also played in the TV series of The Outer Limits in 1997. Her character's name was Rebecca Highfield, sorry, and the episode Regeneration. And let's see, and of course, her Star Trek role was in Star Trek VI, was Lieutenant Valeris, and that was in 1991.
Captain on the bridge.
As you were. Lieutenant.
Valeris, sir. We were told that you needed a helmsman, so I volunteered.
Lieutenant, it is agreeable to see you again. The lieutenant was the first Vulcan to be graduated at the top of her class at the Academy.
You must be very proud.
I don't believe so, sir.
She's a Vulcan, all right.
Let's get this over with. Departure stations. Scotty.
Aye, sir.
Did you find the engine room?
Right where I left it, sir.
Stand by. Uhura, get me the dock master.
Control tower reading, sir.
Control, this is Enterprise. Requesting permission to depart.
This is Control Enterprise. Permission to depart granted. 30 seconds for port gates.
Clear all moorings.
Waiting port gates from this mark.
All rights clear.
Aft thrusters.
Thank you, Lieutenant. 1/4 impulse power.
Captain, may I remind you that regulations specify thrusters only while in space dock?
Jim.
You heard the order, Lieutenant.
Aye, sir.
The next three actors that I list all appeared in Star Trek VI, along with Kim Cattrall. The first one I'm going to mention, number 7 on my list, is Christopher Plummer. He, of course, my most favorite role of his was as Captain Von Trapp in the movie Sound of Music, which was released in 1965. And then this was a surprise to me when I was researching. He was the pigeon named Henri in the animated movie An American Tale in 1986. Now, I remember him in this next role from the Cosby Show. The episode was Shakespeare, and this was in 1987. The episode was entitled The episode was entitled Shakespeare, but his role was Jonathan Lawrence. Now, most recently, he appeared in the movie Knives Out in 2019 as Harlan Thrombey. But his Star Trek role that I'm talking about is in Star Trek VI as General Chang. Now, the next actor also appeared along with Christopher Plummer in Star Trek VI, David Warner. Now, one of his favorite roles of mine was in the movie Time After Time. He appeared as John Stevenson, also known in the movie as Jack the Ripper. This movie was released in 1979, and it took place in San Francisco. And it was released just before my ship, I was in the Navy, was going to deploy on their Western Pacific tour. So friends of mine and I on the ship were watching the newspapers from San Francisco to see if anything weird was happening when it was, according to the movie. It never did, but it was kind of interesting. Now, one of his other roles, he played in the 2001 release of Planet of the Apes as Senator Sandar. He also was in a Doctor Who episode, The Cold War. And let's see, when was that? Oh yeah, 2013, he was Professor Grisenko. He also played, of course, in Mary Poppins Return as Admiral Boom, and that was released in 2018. Now, his role in Star Trek VI was Chancellor Gorkon, and that movie, of course, was released in 1991.
Chang, I requested we meet in private.
Torlak has been instrumental in our efforts to thwart Melkor. He has proven himself worthy.
Very well, then. I'm here to inform you Chancellor Lorak died not 3 hours past.
Now, the third actor in this, besides Kim Cattrall, that appeared in Star Trek VI was Kurtwood Smith. And I'm sure you all know him from his role as Red Foreman on the TV series That 70s Show, which aired from 1998 to 2006. And he appeared in about 4 times in the Star Trek franchise. The first time was on Deep Space Nine as Thrax in the episode Things Past. That was 1996. He also appeared on Voyager as Anarax in the 2-parter Year of Hell in 1997. And believe it or not, he also appeared in Star Trek Lower Decks, the animated series, in the episode Veritas as the character Klar. Now, my favorite role of his in Star Trek was in Star Trek VI, of course, when he appeared as the Federation president.
The Chancellor of the High Council is dead. The result of an unprovoked attack while he traveled to see you under a flag of truce on a mission of peace. Captain Kirk was legally arrested for the crime. May I remind you that he and Dr. McCoy boarded Kronos 1 of their own free will? None of these facts are in dispute, Mr. President.
I have ordered a full-scale investigation. In the meantime,
we expect the Federation to abide by the Articles of Interstellar Law, which you claim to cherish. Kirk and Dr. McCoy will stand trial for the assassination of Chancellor Gorkon.
Out of the question. Ambassador Sarek, there must be some way to extradite these men.
Mr. President, I share a measure of personal responsibility in this matter, but I am obliged to confirm my esteemed colleague's legal interpretation.
What is the position of the Romulan government, Ambassador Nonclus?
I must concur with my colleagues.
But you can't possibly believe that James Kirk assassinated the Chancellor of the High Council.
Mr. President, I don't know what to believe.
I'm waiting for your answer, sir.
This president is not above the law.
No. And I couldn't make a list of number 10 or 10 actors from Star Trek without including James Cromwell, who his most famous Star Trek role was, of course, Zefram Cochrane in the first Star Trek First Contact movie, which was 1996. Now, his other Star Trek appearances were, he appeared twice, actually, as two different characters in Star Trek Next Gen. The 1993 two-parter episode Birthright, he was Jaglom Shrek. And also he appeared as Prime Minister Nayrock in the Hunted episode from 1990. Now, he appeared in Deep Space Nine in 1995 as Hanok in the episode Starship Down. And he also appeared in Star Trek Enterprise, again, as Zefram Cochrane, but this was like a flashback that he did. It was in 2001. He actually, his appearance was actually in the first episode of Broken Bow. And I loved his role in Star Trek First Contact. I'm sure there's several clips I could show you, but this one is my favorite.
Everybody ready to make some history? Always am.
I think I forgot something.
What?
I don't know. It's probably nothing.
Begin ignition sequence.
Oh, God.
19.
Now I remember.
18.
What? Where is
17,
it? What?
16.
We can't lift off without
15,
it.
Jordy, we've got to abort.
14,
No! No, wait, I
13,
found it.
12, 11, 10, 9, 8.
Let's
7,
rock and roll.
6.
Turn that down a little. Hey, we've got a red light on the second intake valve.
Ignore it. We'll be fine. Prepare first stage. Shut down and separation on my mark. 3, 2, 1.